Hello. Okay. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me all right now. Yep. Okay. Perfect. So, good evening, everybody. I'm Pallavi Gupta. Um, I will be taking the live sessions for the course Foundations of Our Software. So I'll just start off by sharing my screen. I'll give you a little bit information about what all to expect in these live sessions. And then if you have any questions, you can ask those and then we'll start the session, okay? All right. Mm, You can all mute yourselves for now. Mm. Okay. All right. Mm, 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 mm. I think you should all be able to see my screens now.
Yes.
All right, great. So this the NPTEL session for Foundations of our software. So the idea behind these NPTEL sessions, as you've all signed up, is that every week you're going to be getting a set of pre-recorded lectures. And so every Friday, these lectures are released. And then on a particular Wednesday, you would have an assignment due. So you are going to be watching the lecture videos and you're going to be answering a set of 10 to 15 questions each week. And then once you submit, so all those scores are going to be recorded. And then for those of you who are interested in signing up for the exam at the end, the scores from your lecture assignments as well as your final exam, they're going to be all included. And if you pass a certain cutoff, then you'll be eligible to get a certificate for it, right? But along the side, what the NPTEL team has started since a couple of years is that you would have some live sessions conducted by PhD students from various institutes. And we would be here to sort of give you a recap of what was covered in these lectures. And then we would discuss some probable questions that would help you answer the assignment questions. And that would give you an idea of what sort of questions to expect in the final exam as well. And then if you have any more questions, any doubts regarding the week's topics, we can discuss those. And starting from the next week onwards, we will also be discussing the previous week's assignment solutions so that you're all clear on what was done and so we're all up to date on how the course is proceeding. And so I am Pallavi Gupta. I am a PhD student at IIT Delhi. And me and there's one more student will be taking these live sessions. So I'll be taking the ones on Friday. In the mail, you would have also gotten that there's another session going on Tuesdays. So today is the Friday session, and 4 days from now would be Tuesday's session for week 1. Both of these sessions would roughly cover the same thing, so you don't have to attend both of them. Attending any one of them would be good. And attendance in these live sessions are not recorded as a part of your as a part of the course requirements. So, and because we understand that you may not be free at either of these times, so these sessions are going to be recorded, like the today's one is getting recorded. These are going to get they're going to be uploaded to YouTube. You would have the link to all of that sent to you in a separate email, in a separate announcement for the course. You've already joined the Zoom meeting for this one. Anything that we are discussing in these sessions, so be it scripts, like R commands, these presentations, or any other material that we'll discuss, it's going to be uploaded on the Google Drive. You will have access to this as well. And so yeah, so this is what the agenda for Friday sessions is going to be. So I'll be here every Friday at between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And here we are with the first session today. At the end of 12 weeks, if you think that we would like to have a revision session, before the final exam, we can also have a 1 or a 2 hour revision session conducted, right? So, and what we are going to be generally doing in these sessions, as I said, we'll recap whatever was discussed in that week. And if there's any sort of a demo or any R commands that we have to work on, which is going to be there in most of cases, we're going to do that. And we'll have some practice questions, whether it's commands or whether it's some calculations, we'll see that. And then doubts from that week or the previous week. Okay, does that sound good? So as such, these sessions are scheduled for 2 hours. It depends. We would try to never exceed 2 hours, but it may happen so that it goes on for 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So that depends on how much content there is to cover. Okay. So anybody, any questions? Throughout the session, please feel free to unmute yourself to ask questions, or at least if not, you can just put it up in the chat box, right? So, and other than that, there is also a discussion forum, which is given as Q&A in your NPTEL page. So if there is still any more questions left, you can always go and ask in that forum. So either me or the other TA, one of us is going to answer those as well. Okay. 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 Let me. Cool. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we can start today's session.
Pallavi, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
So what is the deadline for registering for the exams? Because the communication that I have been receiving, it is mentioning that we have to enroll for the exam by 12th of August.
I think that is the date. Yes.
So by the time we will be completing maybe around 3 weeks only.
That's true. That's true. So the idea is still, I mean, registering for the exam later on is it's just how NPTEL has, it's the format that's been there since a long time. So within the first couple of weeks, you can get an idea if this course is of your interest and if you would like to have a certificate for the same course, and if this course is something that's of your interest and if you'd be able to do it. But yeah, the registration is still going to be that the date you mentioned, the 12th of August.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Um, more importantly, I mean, yeah, the questions which, if you think the questions are more directed towards the administrative stuff of the courses, I think it'll be better if you direct them to the NPTEL team, but you can still let me know. I can also inquire with them, but I think you'll get a quicker response if you directly contact them. Yes. So now this course, the Foundations of R Software, it is a pretty basic course, right? And you will see in today's session that we'll be taking it very slow, right from the installations to what is a programming language all about, because this is going to assume that a lot of you may not have any experience in any sort of coding. So we will be taking it slow in this week and the next. Definitely also practicing this at home after these classes would help you more. But I would be able to adjust the speed of how much to cover and how much to explain if you can keep giving me feedbacks. Okay, but yeah, so let's try it for the next 10-15 minutes and see how it's going, and then you can let me know if I need to explain something again, or if I'm explaining it too slowly, and then we can work around it. Sure. Okay. All right. So so this is just some housekeeping notes that we'll be using across these sessions. This was also mentioned. Okay, before I go into it, so you would have already received an email today stating that the week two's lectures have also been released. So every Friday you would have some lectures released for the next week. These sessions that we are conducting on Fridays or Tuesdays. They would be more helpful if you've already seen those videos. So you already have an idea that what's being covered. Because in these live sessions, I'm not going to cover entirely everything from zero. It's going to assume that you've already seen those lectures. So we'll be building up on those. All right. But nevertheless, if you still have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves to ask or write it in the chat box. Fine. So as you will see in today's session, Joseph, the session is being recorded, right? So this is going to get uploaded to YouTube. So you all don't need to record it locally. This recording is going to be made available to you within an hour after the class is conducted. Okay, yeah, all right, cool. So you would see syntax like this. So syntax is basically how it works, how it's supposed to be written, what's a formatting that's supposed to be done. So we'll often see things like this in here, where a line is starting with this greater than symbol. Okay. And this, so you can already see that the font I've written the black statements in, and the format which I've written this blue statement in is they look different already. So this is generally how codes in R would look like to you. So it's nicer to have it that way written in a PowerPoint presentation as well. But still, writing in a PowerPoint presentation is just to make things more understandable. So this is something, just terminologies, which was also discussed in the lectures. So it's a command line tool wherein we are typing things where we are not making as many clicks as much we are typing, right? So it's a command line tool. There was another tool quite some time back, which was called S plus, and now this is the successor of S plus, so it's called R. There's no full form of R, it's just R. It's an open source software, so we can all download it, install it freely. We don't need to pay. And this is collectively improved by the community. So as these lectures will proceed, you will see that there's a lot so there's no one person or one group which is developing R. The functionality that this is providing is collectively done by a lot of people. And as you go more into this, and if you pursue this in future, you can also add to the functionality, right? Two of the most common fields where this is used is biostatistics and economics. So I'll just let you know. So I am doing a PhD in the field of bioinformatics as well. So I am using R extensively for my work. And so yeah, biostats, bioinformatics, there's a lot of usage of R. There's something like there are two different types of command line softwares, whether it's an interpreter like or it's a compiler based. So compiler, as the name suggests, if you have like 5 lines, if there's no error in any of the 5 lines, only then will you get a final output. But an interpreter takes it line by line, and as we will see, R does it line by line. So it's an interpreter type of a tool. There's something like a base package and contributed packages. Again, we'll see that in the session. There's something called mirrors. So it's not just one place where you can install it from. There are multiple places. It's to avoid any sort of a jamming or any, the server should not be down. So you have access to it all, like anytime you want it, it's there. And there are some repositories again again, we will see this as you go, but these are just some terminologies which we will be using on and off throughout the sessions. Yeah, so it's a lot is being done, and you can see that this graph is starting from 1990s up until and it's up until a couple of years ago. It's the number of packages, basically there's more functionality added into R. Okay. So the first thing that you can all do, so you may, if you've already tried doing this, well and good. Otherwise, again, these slides are going to be shared to you, and this you can get by a simple Google search as well. if you search in Google that you have to install R, you'll be redirected to this site, right? So the rproject.org. And here, as you can see, there's this download R option. So if you click on that, you will be redirected to a page where it gives you an option to, um, install R from any of these host mirrors. And you can see here it says, please choose a location close to you. Now, this is just so that there's a good distribution of users, right? So you will be able to see that there is one which is hosted by NICER, which is the National Institute for Science, Education and Research in Bhubaneswar. So in India, that's one of the, I think that's the only host from India. But it actually does not matter where you, install this from. And yeah, I mean, where you download this from. So once you click on a mirror, so let's say if I'm clicking on this mirror from nicer.ac.in, I'll get these three options, whether I want to download it for Linux or Mac or Windows. Whichever is your operating system, you can click on that and then it's going to get downloaded. You click on the executable, the installer file, and it's going to get installed on your system, right? Just follow the instructions that way. So do give this a try right after today's class. It should not take you more than 10 minutes. And once you're done with this, you should be good to go almost for the entire set of lectures. So when you're doing this step, of course, you need internet. But once you're done with this step, once you do not have to install anything else, you don't need internet to work on R, right? So you can do it all on your system even when you're not connected to the internet. Okay. This is what's happening. Sorry about that. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so now let's actually try to open R and see what it looks like. So mine is a Mac OS system. So I'm just going to search R here in my menu and I'll get this option here, right? R. So I'm just going to open that and this is what it looks like. So it's going to take maybe a few seconds to open up everything because you can see it's still loading. And for those of you who might have already installed R long back, it's just important to keep a note of what version it shows. So I would recommend if you can have version 4.1 and above, that'll be good. If you have anything, I mean, you can always install a newer version. So the current version, I think it's 4.4.1. It's good if you can have something around this. Definitely nothing that starts with a 3. Even 4.1 is relatively old, but it should be okay. Right? So once you have this R opened, you will be able to see this sort of a so I can just do a control plus plus and the font size is going to increase. So you can see this greater than symbol here, right? And you can see a flickering cursor also there. So what this means is that now R is ready to accept input from the user. Okay. So what sort of input from the user can we give? So let's say, so we've seen it's going to be a lot of mathematical operations, statistical operations. So let's start with the basic. Let's start with using R as a calculator. Okay. So I'm going to type 3 plus 4 and I'm going to press enter. So if you see what happened here was, it gave me the value 7. And this line did not start with a greater than symbol. Instead, it started with 1 in a square bracket. So these notations here, these brackets, and any symbol that you see here, which is different, it has a meaning. So we will see this in more detail in the upcoming sessions, but a number when it's surrounded by a square bracket, it sort of means an index. It's a position. So here it means the first position. There's just one output, right? There's just one value and the position of the first value is 1. So this is what the 1 is indicating, right? And then once the output is done, you have another line where it's again, R is ready to accept input from the user. All right. So that's one thing. Again, you can do as much, any sort of calculations. So we can, let's say we can do some sort of multiplication. And if you remember, so addition, it's the plus symbol, subtraction minus, division is going to be this forward slash. So if I divide it by 20, it's going to give me 5. That's fine. Multiplication is going to be by the asterisk, which is above 8. And if I do that and then I press enter, it's doing the multiplication. That's great as well. And again, few more things I can do. I can find out square of a value. So to find the square of something, I'm going to use this caret symbol, which is above 6. So this symbol here, 4 is to, let's say 4 is to 3, and that gives me 64. So it's working correctly. Now, if I want to find the square root of a number, so can anybody tell me how do I find the square root of a number? You can unmute yourself or you can type. If I want to find the square root of a number, what should I type here?
0.5.
Yeah, the power can be 0.5. So if I have, let's say 100 to the power 0.5, then it gives me the square root. So that works perfectly. Now, very often there could be multiple ways of doing the same thing. So there's an option, and so we'll see this a lot starting from today's class. There's something called functions in R, and a function is denoted by a certain word. So English alphabets of certain word followed by curved brackets. So you're familiar with 3 brackets, right? There's a curved bracket, which
Ma'am,
looks like yes.
ma'am, to find out the square root of 100, we
Hmm.
write 100 to the power 0.5. Why we do not write 100 to the power half?
Half is 0.5, right? We can also do 1 by 2. That will also be fine.
That we write 1 by 2.
Yes. So what you can do is you'll just have to write it in brackets so that it does not get confused where the by is coming, because that can also mean 100 to the power 1 divided by 2, right? But if I do this, then I also get 10, right? So half and 0.5 is the same thing, right? So both of them give me the same answer. So that's fine. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So another way, so yeah, so as I was saying, there are 3 types of brackets. You've also learned about this in maths, right? So there's a curved bracket, which is above 9 and 0 on the keyboard. There's a curly bracket, which is next to P, but that's on the above side of those keys. And there's square bracket. Now R uses these 3 brackets differently. Okay, so we just saw this square bracket right now. It'll come again later sometime. But the square bracket is basically to tell you positions of some things. The curved bracket, you've already seen this here. We can use it as an actual bracket where when you want to have maths, digits and symbols and operators separated. So that also you can use. Plus, where you can also use this curved bracket is when you're writing functions. So what are functions? Functions are basically there is in the background, R is already told that you can do a certain operation on certain inputs. So to give you an idea, there is a function which is called to find the square root. So if we just found square root by 2 different ways, but there is a third way also. So if I write a function called sqrt, okay, it's an inbuilt function in R. It's already written in R. So R understands what sqrt means. But what I need to do is I need to write this bracket after it. So it's sqrt bracket. Now this means it's a function. It's an already inbuilt function. And within this, if I write 100, and then if I press enter, then it gives me the square root of the number that I write inside the bracket. Okay. So what it means here is sqrt is a function. And what I'm writing inside is an input or an argument. So again, another important word to remember is argument. Whatever goes inside this curved brackets, it could be one, it could be like a single value, which is 100 here. It could be multiple. Again, we will see that more. These can be separated by commas. You can write, let's say 100, comma, something, comma, something. Any questions? No. Okay. Right. So, right. So what we just wrote here is a function, right? A function. Again, just to reiterate, it's a word followed by a curved bracket, and inside generally there is an argument or an input value. Okay. Now,
Ma'am,
yes.
ma'am, is the square root function or the R software is only consider the real value or imaginary, like square root of -5?
Okay.
Is it written?
So that's a very good question. So the best way to do it is let's check. Let's see what it does, right? So it gives me NaN, which says not a number. NaN is a short form for not a number. And yeah, that's it. It gives me a warning message that it's NaN. So it will give you an output. It's not giving you an error. So again, there are two things you can keep in mind, that there's something called an error and something called warning. Warning means you should be careful of what you've got as the output, because maybe it's wrong, maybe R is just confused what to do. An error, it will not give you an output. Okay, but that's a good question. And the best way to check is by typing that in. Okay, so yes, so we need a positive number for that. So the square root cannot be a square root of a negative number, is going to be imaginary, so it's not going to give us that. Okay.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to add, like, the person asked a square root of I. So if we write a square root of 5I square, then it gives the value 0 plus 5I. So in that
Say
way
that
we
again.
can. If we write SQRT bracket 5I square, I square means -1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's also a very good question. So we
I
will
square.
see this. Yes, I understand that. So I will come back to this question in 5 minutes. Before that, I would like to tell you something about variables, and then we will come to your question again. Remind me if I forget. Okay.
It's okay, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So, if this makes sense, then let's go to the next step. So now we have done very basic calculations. Now, if I want to save the output somewhere, right? So let's say if it was a very big calculation, I did 1,05,281.3 plus, again, a big number like that. If I want the output somewhere, I want to remember, or not even the output, if I want what number I just told you, if I want to save that number and I want to use it at multiple places, I want to find its square, I want to find its sum with another number, I want to divide it by 2, I want to do a lot of things with that number. Typing that number again and again is not a good idea. So I can sort of make some sort of, I can call it A. If I call that number A, it'll be easier for me to use, right? So let me call that number A. I will assign that value to a number. So keep in mind the the sentence that I just framed. I am assigning that value to a number. So let's call that number, what I just said, something 1,25,689.2, let's say, whatever this number is. I want to assign this value. So I can just call it A. So A is equal to this number. I just wrote it. Now, important thing here, R is not very, very particular about spaces. So even if I would have added a space here, A space is equal to space this number, R would still be fine. So you don't worry about adding or removing spaces. It's up to you. You may like it this way. You may want to add a space. That's fine. So if I've written this, now if I just write A, if I press enter now, it's going to give me the value A. So R has this value stored. Okay. Now what I can do the same thing again. Let's say I want to find the square of this number. So A to the power 2 should give me the square. And it did give me the square. Okay. Or if I want to find A multiplied by 100, it gives me, right? So it's so simple now. I don't have to type this large number again and again. Another way, so let's say I want to denote another number. Let's say I want to call it B. There's one more symbol that you will come across very often instead of this is equal to is an assignment operator. Assignment operator is nothing but it's an arrow which is pointing towards the variable. So again, remember, we have a arrow which is pointing towards the variable because we are assigning the value, we are assigning some number or some value to a variable. So it comes up like this. So this is an arrow. Okay. So let's say if I'm just calling it 1000.
Ma'am,
Yes.
A equal to 1,25,609.2. You calculate A square, but it
Yeah.
gives the number, not the decimal. Why?
Maybe the square, maybe it has a, I don't know. Yeah, it should have given a decimal, right? Good point. I don't know. Let me
I think
check.
it will give only integer value.
No, it should not give an integer value. Let me, okay. Now that you've brought that point, if it was a small value like this. Okay, wait. What I'll do is let's assign this value as a small number. So maybe it's this. Let's call it 13.5. So this is what I'm assigning. So the assignment operator, I'm assigning the value 13.5 to B. Okay, pressing enter. Now if I want to find the square of B, I'll do the same thing. So now it's given me this value, the decimal value also. Maybe it's doing some sort of a truncation. It's good that we came across this. I will check this, why it's doing this thing. But it's doing some sort of a, it's just cutting off the decimal point. But I'll check it and I'll let you know. But anyway, this is not very, very important. It's just good that it came up, but you can ignore it for now. So the main idea here is that there are two ways in which you can assign values to a variable. So now that variable is saved in the memory of R. Okay. Now it knows every time you call something A, it knows that, okay, you're talking about this value. Every time you're saying B, it knows, okay, you're talking about this value. Now, R is case sensitive. What it means is it's going to consider small lowercase b and uppercase b as two different variables. So we can have this capital B. So if it's this value, and maybe if I'm calling it 1000, so B is this, but capital B is this. So I can do a, let's say I can do a capital B minus a small b. So I can do that, right? Because it's these are two different variables. And you have to be careful that you should not use the same variable again, because then it can overwrite. Right now, if I'm, let's say I'm not careful and I'll say, okay, B is equal to whatever, this big number. So now it has, okay, this is just the scientific notation of it. So it's 10 to the power 8 zeros, right? So, but anyway, so the thing is that now this older value of B is no longer there. It's been overwritten by a new number, right? So you have to be careful what variable names you're giving. So right now, since we are doing very basic calculations, values like A, B, C, D, they're okay. But when you are doing some really long, lots of coding, lots of variables, then it's just recommended that you don't call them A, B, C, D. Call them a name that makes sense, right? So it can be input 1, input 5, output 5, something like that. Something which is a little more, something that has a little more information to it. Okay, or if you're entering marks, you can call it marks. If it's temperature, you can call it temp, something like that. Okay, now let's say if this is what, let's say if this is all I had planned for today. There is more, but let's say if this is all I had planned and I want to share it with you, if I want to send it to you after the class, I can copy paste all of this. Of course, I can give you as a Word document, but it's not the best format. Okay. So a better format is, there's something called a script. For R, it's called an R script. So if you, when you've opened R, if you go to File, when you're on a Windows computer, it'll say new script here. And on Mac, it's saying it's new document, but that's the same thing. So if I click on that, it opens this document here. Okay. And you can see it's very faint, but there is this one written here. Okay. So this is basically, it's a copy, it's a document, it's a script wherein you've written the commands. So everything here that you see, everything that was after this greater than symbol, this was a command, this was an input that you write here, but it's not executed. Okay, a couple of words here. So the input is the command, and when you're pressing enter, that means that the command is getting executed. The line is getting executed. So you sort of have a backup here. If everything was in a script, it's like almost you have a backup for this. So just to show you, if you already don't have a backup created, what I can do is I can copy all of this. I can paste it here, right? So, and then ideally these outputs are not what we were interested in, right? The output is definitely going to stay the same every time you run or execute it, right? And also these greater than symbols are not, this is what R gives you, but you should not have this in these scripts. So just give me a minute or two to format this and I'll tell you why this is not the best thing to do. Yeah. I can do it this way slightly. Okay, in the meantime, while I'm formatting this, do any of you have any questions? Okay, I think.
Can the arrow symbol be inverted?
Sorry?
Can the arrow symbol in that assignment operator be inverted, like the opposite way around?
Assignment operator?
Yeah.
In the assignment?
Like the greater than sign, after that there is that dash kind of thing. So can that be the opposite way around, that first the dash comes, then the...
Okay, so good question. Okay, so it could be either this or it could be this. So basically the arrow has to point towards the variable. Okay.
Okay.
So what I can do also, so there's, again, we'll use this more often. There's something called comments in R. So if I want to tell you, if I want to write something that just to explain things better, but it's not going to be understandable by the software, but it's going to be understandable by you. So that's a comment. So basically I'll say that the arrow should point towards the variable. Okay. So that's what, so you can imagine it's an arrow like this, or it's an arrow like this, right? Well, we can try what it does. If, let's say, if it was, is this what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so let's try what happens if we do this. So it's going to say it reverted it back. It did, just to understand it better, it flipped it. And it said invalid assignment, right? But if instead I write it like this, then it works. It understands that because the arrow is pointing towards the variable. So that's That's the funda. Whether you write the variable first or you write the number first, that's on you. It's just that this is the preferred notation. You'll see this most, like almost everywhere you're going to see this, or you'll just see n is equal to. Again, the assignment operator and the is equal to, they're both doing the exact same thing. It's a matter of preference, which one you like better. So most likely in these sessions, you might see the assignment operator more when I'm writing commands. It's just I've gotten used to that. But it's perfectly okay if you're using the is equal to sign. Okay. Okay. So now I have the script ready. So it's almost as if I'm giving you this thing. Now what you can do is, so let's say if I want to clear up the screen, whatever we have done right now, because I already have a copy saved in that script. Okay, I think this will be a little bit better. Okay. So I have these two here. So if I want to clear this up, I can do a control L. Oh, control L doesn't work. Okay, anyway, forget it. Ignore what I just said. It should have, maybe it's something else. So let's say if we would not have done what we just did right now, and if you want to start afresh, if it's your own computer that you're now working on, so you have what I have on the right side, but you don't have this on the left side. You just have an empty screen on the left side. Okay, if anybody is recording, you don't need to record it. Okay, the session is getting recorded and you will get the recording right after this class. Okay, so if what you have is what's there on the right side and nothing on the left side, what you can do is have your cursor on the right side and you press Control Enter. So when we were on the left side, we were on this executable screen, which is called the console, by the way. You can see that name's written here, our console. When you're on the console, you type and you press Enter. But when you're not on the console, when you're on this document or the script, you have your cursor on the line that you want to run, the line that you want to execute, and you press Control Enter. Or on Mac, you can also do Command Enter. When I do that, you see my line cursor was here, but this got executed. It got copy pasted and entered all at once. And it gave you the output. Nothing happened here on the right side. So your right side is still clean. You can use it again. You can share it if you have to share it somewhere. But I can just keep pressing, I can go to the next line, press Control Enter, execute whichever line I want to, and I get the same outputs again. Right? So it's very convenient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this document here. So what I'll do is I'll do File, I'll do Save As. Where do I save it? Okay. Give me a second. I'll have to search. Documents. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them. Okay, so this is what we have. So I'll just call it practice commands. And if I do save, okay, maybe what I should have done. Yeah, that's okay. It saved it as an R source file. I could have also saved it with the .r extension that I think would have been better. Maybe I'll just save it as a, if I save it as a .r file, it's there. Yeah, that's fine. So either way, it's okay. Okay, whether it's with the .r, capital R extension or not, it's still okay. So what we can do is, let's close it and let's start afresh. So it's going to say, whenever you're closing this, it's going to ask you if you want to save the workspace image. You don't need to save the workspace image, so you can hit don't save. And okay, close that also. Sorry. Okay, where are we here? Apologies for the mess. Okay, so this is my folder for today. Yes, you will get a recording of the session. So the session is being recorded. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube. I will send you a link to the YouTube channel in the, let me just send it to you now. I'll put it up in the chat. So it's basically my YouTube channel where I'm uploading. I've done a few NPTEL courses before. So it's all of that is there, but I'll make a separate playlist for this course and then you can access that. So, but all of these links, the links to, I'll upload everything in the, I'm just uploading it here. So that's there. Okay, what happened? Anyway, yes. So again, just to reiterate, the YouTube channel will have the recording of these sessions, and this Google Drive, currently it's empty. Okay. So we'll keep updating it with anything that we are doing in these classes. Right? So these are scripts that we just made, this PPT that we are using as a reference for the class. All of that is going to get uploaded after each session. Currently it's empty. Okay. Now we did something, and let's see if we're able to open that again and do it again. So we had this practice commands. You can double click it, but I just want to be sure that we open it with R here. So I also have another app installed, which we will be using again today and in the next class. But so if R is the only thing that's installed on your system, you can double click it. Otherwise, you can select an open with option, and then you can select R on that. So when you selected that, you got these two windows opened. Again, the R console opens where you have this greater than symbol already there, and you have the script. So again, you can try executing. So you're able to execute it, right? Wherever the cursor is, wherever you press Control Enter, it's going to get executed. So we are good to go, right? Okay. Okay. All right. Now, I also have one more script for today's discussion, which I call it as script underscore today's date. And let's open that. And now let's see what we want to discuss more. Okay. So again, same thing, right? The script looks very similar. There's just a little more things here, but it's exactly what we have been talking about, right? A few things I think we've already talked about here. So what are we doing here? We are assigning the value 5 to the variable a using is equal to as a means, right? I go to the next line, execute a, and I get, yeah, it's actually assigned as 5. And then I go to the next line, I assign the value 6 to the variable b using the assignment operator. And then I check, and then I actually get 6. And then I assign the value 7 to c. And then this is exactly what we have done right now, right? Which assignment operator, which direction to talk about. So we know that this is what is going to work the best. So I'll just execute this for now, but you can give it a try. Okay. Now, we just talked about how we want to add numbers, right? We want to add them. We can use the addition symbol. So a plus b plus c or 1 plus 2, any numbers, right? We can have 2 numbers. We can have more than 2 numbers also that we want to add at the same time. Now, there might be times where you may not exactly know how to write the inputs inside the function. So a good idea is often to use this help option. There were a lot of help options that were talked about in these lectures. I'm not going to be reiterating a lot of those here, but we'll see some of those in a little time. So this one is one of my favorites to go to. So question mark sum. Okay, if I do that, again, what I'm doing is I have my cursor here. I'm going to press Control Enter. So you can see here what it did was it's starting the HTTPD help server done. So here I get this on the top left is it tells me the name of that function. So the name is basically what I have written before the bracket. And then inside it says base. So base means this came up with when I installed R on my computer. It came with R. I did not install anything fancy for this. Just the base R had it. Okay, we'll see what fancy things we can install. We'll install them in some time. But this is the basic. Because some function is pretty basic, right? Everybody is going to use it. It's not going to be that only some people, maybe who are only doing bioinformatics, will use it. People who are doing economics, they will not use the sum function, right? So it's going to be used by everybody. So it has to be a very basic thing. So it gives you a description, it gives you a title, sort of what it does, gives you a description, gives you how you want to use it. And then it says arguments, right? So arguments, it can accept these numbers. Obviously, the inputs has to be numbers. And there's something called na.rm is equal to false. We will not discuss this right now. Try to see if you can understand what it does. But basically, it's something to do with NA. So NA is like, NA means not applicable or not, it's non-existent. It's just NA, nothing. Okay. So it's about missing values or something like that. Again, not absolutely essential to be understood right now. So we'll take it slow. We'll take it as we need it. It gives you some description. It gives you what's the output. So it's going to output a value, right? Of course, the sum, that's the output. And they could be integer. We'll see in more detail if this can be used elsewhere. But basically, this is how you're going to use this sum function, right? You can do, this is the simplest way to go about it, right? Sum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this thing, if you see, can you think what this might mean? What could this indicate? Any guesses?
Sum of numbers that are at the position of 1 to 5.
Okay. Tell me what this means. The highlighted thing here, 1:5.
1 to 5.
Yes. So it means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are, so you're making a vector. Okay. We'll see this again, maybe in the next week, but a continuous set. So a vector basically means multiple values, one after the other in some order. Okay. A single number is a single number, right? Like A, right now what we wrote as A, that's a single value. But if A, instead of being 5, if A was 1, 2, 3, or 1, 5, 9, whatever, anything more than 1, then we call it a vector. Okay. So this is what, so we've understood how the sum function works. So we can do it like this. We can sum 1, 2, 3. Okay. And it did give me the output as 6, which is what it should be, right? And then I can save. So what I'm doing here is, okay, very often in R, you may want to read it from right to left. So the first thing you want to do here is understand what is happening here on the right. You're finding the sum, and then you are assigning that value to E, right? So currently what we were doing, we just had a number and we were assigning it directly to a variable. Now first we are calculating a value and then we are assigning it. All right. So if I run this, so when I did this value, this line here, I got an output. I got the output 6. Now when I run this line here, you see I did not get an output because in the assignment step, the output is being saved rather than the output being shown here or the output being printed. Very often you call the word print when the output is, it's written here when the output is shown here. You said that the output is printed. Now we don't have an output here. Instead, the output has been saved. So there's no output basically. The value is being saved. But if you want to still check, you can just type E and you can see, yes, E is actually storing the right value. Okay. You can also do sum of two variables that we just saved. So if you want to find the sum of A and B, now we are not saving this output anywhere, so it should get printed. There's no assignment, right? So this sum A and B, it's not being saved somewhere. So it's going to get printed, and that's what happens here. Now, if I write sum A plus F, what do you think is going to happen here? We don't have an F saved here already, right? So what do you think would happen? What would R do? Is it going to assume some value of F? Is it going to say F not found? Or is it going to do something else? What do you think? Any guesses? Think about it. It's okay if the answer is wrong. Doesn't matter.
Maybe a warning that
Yep.
F is not assigned.
That's a good point. Okay, let's see. It should give an error. So again, the basic difference between error and warning is that in the warning, you do get some sort of an output. And in the error, R is like, I don't know what to do. So I will not do anything. Okay. So when I'm doing this, it's going to give me an error because it's going to say that the object F not found, right? So yeah, so it's going to be an error. And so you can also find the sum of some numbers and some pre-assigned variables all at the same time, right? So this can also be done, right? Again, just the same thing. Yeah, it's, why have I written this again? I don't know. I've already written this here. Anyway, okay, and we already saw this square root example, right? So square root of e, square root of 6. Now remember I told you that R is case sensitive. So if instead of writing sum with a small s, if I write sum with a capital S, then it's going to say could not find the function because R is very particular about spellings in capital and small letters. Okay. So likewise, so capital A is also something that it would not be able to find, but small a, it knows what this is, right? Now, before we go to the next thing, the question which one of you asked about if I had, let's say, like 5i square, if I had written that. So R does not identify I as a symbol of imaginary numbers. For R, I is going to be a variable I, which it does not still recognize, right? So if, let's say if this was something that it should have looked like, okay, something like this. I don't know if this is the right way to do it. Maybe something like that, right? So I square, and that's multiplied to any number that you want to find. So if it's 5i square, so it's just going to say I not found because for that, it's almost as if this A or B, it should have had a value. So it does not recognize I as that imaginary number. Okay. So this will not work.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, but that was a very good question.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we've done some basics here. So you should now have a fair idea of how coding is done. Okay. So you basically type it, some numbers. That's what we are mostly doing here. You have to save values here because writing the same thing again and again does not make sense. And then you'll get some outputs or you get some errors. Okay. Now, we just saw one example of this question mark, which is good to find out what the function does. But let's say you don't know the name of the function. Let's say it was not as simple as sum. It was some complicated name and you've forgotten about it. So there's this option of help.search. And in the lectures, it was given that if you help.search and inside, okay, so the basic difference you can see here is that there are these double quotes starting and ending. So until now, okay, before we go there, let's just, I just want to tell you one more thing. Sorry for going back and forth, but if I want to save, so right now I'm just dealing with numbers, but I can also save names and like alphanumeric things in R also. So let's say if I want a variable, let's say if I just want to save my name, this. So I will have to write it in double quotes, because if I don't write it in double quotes, it will consider that to be a variable and it'll say variable not found. So, but I actually need, so what I did was same thing, just like I was assigning 5 is A, I'm saying in double quotes my name, I'm assigning that to the variable P. And when I'm writing P, it's going to print that out. Okay. So maybe just here I'll, I don't know, I'll call it NPTEL, right? Something like that. So whenever you're working with something that's a non-number, then you have to write it in double quotes. Okay. So that's what we are doing here as well. If you want to find out what commands are there that will help you do a data input, we are writing it help.search. That's a function, right? You remember it's a function because it's a word followed by the bracket. And the input, the argument that this function is accepting, it's what you want to do in that command. You want to input data. Okay. So we'll run this and we'll see what happens. So what it did was it opened my browser. Okay, it opened the web browser. And it gave me some help pages. So I can go through these. Maybe this one looks, maybe this is what I want to do. But again, this requires a little more searching. It's not very straightforward. But nevertheless, that there. Now, I was just trying to, so I had also not used this functionality up until I came across this in these lectures. But let's say if I want to find if I wanted to find this sum function. So maybe adding numbers was a good search, right? So if I search this, I did not get the sum function as my output. It gave me something like at risk, drawing numbers at risk. I don't know what this is, right? If I write just add, I've got some lot of things. It's a huge page. But going through all of this does not make sense again. Right? So I was just playing around with what search would give me. So maybe this was nice. So it's a smaller page, but I can still not see the sum function here. So now I actually just searched sum and I still got a very big page. So again, so what I basically want to tell you through this is the help.search functionality needs to be dealt with carefully. It may not always be a very straightforward output to this. Okay. Very often a Google search might be a better way to go about it. But anyway, this was there in the lectures, so you should keep a note of it. But if this works better for you or a Google search works better for you, that's on you. All right. Okay, fine. There's another help option which is called help.start. This is basically to help you to start in R, right? Whether you want to get an introduction to R, we'll talk a little bit more about what packages are next. But yeah, it's where to start from. But I think instead of this option, this course will give you a better idea of how to start in R. Okay. Okay, so we don't have a lot more left. Just one very basic one thing. So you've heard this term now, functions. Okay. So yeah, okay. So you've heard this term functions. Now, functions like sum, maybe product, or divide, or square root, or exponential. The things like these, you can sort of club them together in under maths, right? So all of these functions, they do similar things. They can be grouped in a category, right? So just like that, there could be groups of functions, which it's very often that if you use one function from that group, you may require more functions from that group. So these groups are called packages. Okay. Individual functions are functions. individual commands, but groups of related commands, group of related functions are packages. And you can install packages from the internet depending on your use. Okay. So again, for maybe today's session, you did not need any of those functions because we are dealing with very basic things. But maybe as we go along, there would be certain functions you will need. So you cannot install just that function. You need to install that entire group. And then that group is going to be there on your computer, right? And then you can use it whenever you want. So this next command, installed.packages. Now, again, this is also a function, right? Because it's a word followed by a curved bracket. So if I execute this command, it's going to give me a list of all the packages that are installed on my computer. Now, I told you I've been using R for a very long time. So for me, this list is going to be very long. On your computers, if you've only installed R just now, this list is going to be shorter. But let's see what it looks like. So if I run this, okay. So this is what it is. So it's arranged alphabetically. It's a lot of information, right? Anyway, so it's just there. Not important again, right? But it's a good idea. Sometimes you might want this, but again, it's very difficult to navigate through it. Okay, just when I press enter, I can get to the next executable line. Okay, so that's it. So that tells you about yeah, so it gives you a list of all the functions that are installed on your list of all packages that are there on your computer. So you can try this. Now, so we talked about when you installed R, you need internet. Now, when you're installing packages, because the word here is installed, right? So you installed it at some point of time. So to do the installation, you need internet for that. We'll see how you install packages. But once you've installed package, let's say now over the last 2 years, I've installed 50 packages. Okay. All those packages are there on my computer, but every day that I'm working, I don't need all 50 of them, right? I might need 3 or 4 today. I might need a different 3 or 4 tomorrow. So when I'm opening my R console, there's no point of calling all 50 of them all together and making it slow, because it's going to be a lot of, sometimes these packages can be a little heavy. So it doesn't make sense that I call all of them, right? The word here is call or load, right? Even if they're there on my computer, I don't need them every time. So I can only load packages or load, again, another word, library, same thing, packages and libraries, it's roughly the same thing. So I've installed packages, but I will only load those which I require at a particular time. So if I go through this list of installed packages, I will see that there is this thing. You can see that there's this thing called tidyverse. It's a very it's a good package. It has a lot of functionality, so I've installed it. You can also try installing it. We'll see how to install it in a little while. So it's already there. And now what I told you, there's a package. A package has a lot of functions. One of the functions is this thing called left join. Okay, left_join. So let's say I want to find out what the left join function is. So I'm going to do this question mark thing. So it says that error in this, no method for this and no documentation for it as a function. So basically what this error means is that it could not find the left join function. But I know that the left join function is a part of the tidyverse package, and I know that this tidyverse is installed on my computer. So it's there on my computer, but it's not loaded into this R session that I'm working on today. Does this make sense? It's a very basic thing to understand, so you have to be clear on this. So you have to install packages. You have to install them only once. If I install tidyverse today on my computer, it's there on my computer. but I need to load it every time that I want to use it. Does that make sense? Just give me a thumbs up or just say yes or type yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm assuming everybody who did not say yes also means yes. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to load the package tidyverse now. Or I can say I can load the library tidyverse. It's the same thing. Okay. So I can load it using the library function. So library space tidyverse. So it did something, it said attaching something package conflict. You can ignore as long as there's no error. You can ignore what it said here for now. Now I want to type this thing again. Okay. I can either type it again, or what I can do is I'll have my cursor here and I'll just press the upper arrow. So if I press the upper arrow, I can go back, and upper and lower arrows I can use to type in the same command again. Yes. All right. So Medri, the package that you would need, it's going to be subject stream related, and even with those streams, you're going to have lots of things. So for example, tidyverse is it's not really field specific. It's mostly to do with how you rearrange your data. Okay, very often you can have a table, you might want to shift columns here and there, you might want to select common values and put it in some other format, something like that. So that's called data wrangling. Again, we'll do that also a lot. So that, for example, can be done by tidyverse. So that's a common function. Almost everybody uses it, but right, yeah. We will cover a part of it, but more importantly, so the way this generally works is when you have to do a function, you'll often search how it can be done. And I think the best way to go about that is through Googling it. Okay, so you can search if you want to do a certain functionality, how to, let's say you'll type how to join columns in R. And it's going to give you functions, it's going to tell you how to run that function. And then you can trace back where the function came from. And then you can install that package, you can load that library, and then you can use that function. So there's no book to go about it. There's no book to go through about it, but yeah, it's a learn as you grow process. All right. So what we were doing here is I want to learn about left join now. So now you see it's giving me the information about it. Right? So the thing was that the package was always there on my computer because I installed it, but I did not load it. So how do I install a package? Right? So the way I want to install package is I will simply write install dot package packages, and then bracket, and then in double quotes I will write the name of the package. Okay, so you can give this a try. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to run this, but you can all try this. The first time that you're going to be installing, so tidyverse is a big package. It's almost like a package of packages. It's a lot of things all together, but it's really going to help you. So I'll highly recommend you installing this. The first time it might take a little time because it's also installing a few basic packages that it needs. So these are called dependencies. So for tidyverse to work, it might need some more packages. So it's going to do that on its own. If it asks you a yes or a no option, you can select yes. Generally, that's going to be the case. But that's on your discretion. It's not going to make a lot of difference. So once I have installed the package, you only need internet when you're installing the package. And then you can, if you don't have access to internet, then also you can load the library because you're just calling it from your computer to your R session. And then of course you can do the functions without the internet, right? So that's there. Package description, again, you can type in the name of the package. And so again, just something to be another thing to be careful about. Sometimes you have these double quotes, sometimes you don't have double quotes. It's just how it is. So, so, what we were doing here is I want to question, I want to learn about left join now. So now you see it's giving me the information about it. Right? So the first time that you're going to be installing, so tidyverse is a big package. It's almost like a package of packages. It's a lot of things all together, but it's really going to help you. So I'll highly recommend you installing this. The yeah, I mean, I cannot do anything about it. A little bit, if you can remember, that's well and good. Otherwise, when you're working on R, one statement is going to give you an error, so you can troubleshoot. But when you're not on R, it's a little better if you can remember how to go about it. So if you want to find the description of the package, so when we were dealing with the question mark, we were getting a description of the function. Now, if you want to get the description of the package, you can type this. It's going to give you a few things like this. What's the name? What's the version? Authors, some description of what it does, what version of R it requires, something, right? Install.packages. Okay. So installed.packages and install.packages, they are different things. So when you want to install, it's going to be without the ed. And installed packages means what's there on your system already. So when you want to install, you just remove the ed from that command. All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, so this is exactly how you should try. You type in something, you're going to get some errors. You have to troubleshoot, right? So one of the very basic things that you will make a mistake is with the capital, the small letters, the which bracket to use, where to use double quotes, what spelling to use, because now here also you can see that there's a capital D in the middle somewhere, right? If you forget that capital D, it's going to give you an error. Okay. There's some more some more things that we can try. So if you write example of sum, right? So you remember when we did this question mark thing at the end, it gave you a few examples. So when you run that, it's just going to give you an example of those things again, right? So sometimes you may just want to get an idea of how to use that function. So this one's also very, very useful. Another level of getting the example is the function demo. So demo of the persp package, I think. Yeah, it's the package. So it's saying type return to end to start. Return means just enter. I'm pressing enter. It opens a window. It's going to go through a few plots. I'm not sure if it's going to come up. So it did something. It did some very complicated things. Require these data sets, something it does here. So persp is a function, actually. Sorry about that. Persp is a function. So it makes some graphs. So I'm just pressing enter here. Some lines are being made on the screen. I don't know how it's. Okay, just ignore that. It's fine. Okay, so if I just keep pressing enter as it says, it's going to give me different commands. So again, you can see it's very complicated, but at the end of the day, it's just some functions. So names within these names, you have some variables, some numbers, some functions within functions, some assignment operators. Then you use that variable in the next line, and so on and so forth, right? So it's just some nice fancy functions that are coming up. Okay, so that's what the demo is doing. Let me reshare my screen here. I've got all these lines. I'll see how to avoid this in the next class. Okay, we're back on track. Okay, so again, we already talked about this. So sometimes you can have so instead, maybe what I'll do is, okay, let's talk about, I'll just change this a little bit. So now you see it's very simple to change what I want to discuss in the class. I have this script with me. So what I'm doing here is, so let's say I have this vector with me. I mean, I want to work with these four numbers, 1, 2, 4, and 5. So if I want to make them as a vector means a group of items. They can be numbers, they can be words, anything. So I have this function with me. Now C is a function, right? Because it's a word or it's an alphabet followed by this bracket here, right? So this combine function, the C stands for combine. So basically what it's doing is it's making a vector out of these 4 numbers. So you see, this is what is happening here. I got this number. Now is where this index comes into play. So observe the next example. So one of the ways to make a vector is the combine function, but that you can use when you have things in random orders, right? Even if you had like another number here, -6 or something, even then you could use it. But when things are in order, either ascending order or descending order, then there's no point in you typing the whole thing 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can type 1 to 100. I mean, you can just write 1:100 and it's going to give you the same thing. Now you see what it does here is, so depending on how big my console is, if I run the same thing again, the command is exactly the same, right? But it's just that its display is different. Here it could display 13 numbers at once. Here it's displaying 18 numbers at once. So at the beginning of each line, depending on how big the display is, it's giving me the index of the first number of that line, right? So since it's all in order, what I'll do is, let's write it like this. Let's write this one. Okay. So if I have this, so of course my numbers are going to be 20, 19, 18, so on and so forth until -9, -10. And what happened here was it could display whatever 18 numbers in one line and the 19th number. So this is what the 19 here is telling us in the square bracket. The 19th position or the 19th number, which is 2, that's where the next line is beginning. And you're not really doing anything with these indices here. It's just for a better, just to improve readability. Okay. So that's what is happening here. Okay. And of course, I can save this vector into a variable. I'm calling it L. So this is my variable L. I can pick any index that I'm interested in. Okay. So let's say if I want the 38th index, I can pick that. And well, since it was 1 to 100, the 38th index contains the number 38. So just to make it a little bit simpler, I mean, a little more understandable, if it's 100 to 1, if I save that as the variable M, and if now I want the third number, so it's going to be this one, right? This was the first number, that's the second number, and it's the third number. So, that's, okay, I have no idea where this is coming from. I'm so sorry. I think I just copy pasted and it's there. Okay. Oh, okay. I remember. Fine. I will come to this in a second. Now, since I made some changes in the script, so when I'm before closing, I'll just do a Control S or, just save it from here so that it's all the changes are updated. Okay. So let's come on to the PowerPoint for now. So we have seen this, you've seen this. Definitely try installing R. I mean, definitely install R. You definitely need it for this course. We talked about libraries and packages. So packages are a collection of functions, generally which do something similar. Okay. You just need to install a package once. It might ask you to choose a mirror. If it does, you choose anything, choose any mirror. You remember what a mirror is, right? Any of these country pages that are hosting or package hosting these things. Once you've installed it, you'll call it a library now that's available on your system, but you just need to load it every time. So the library bracket name of that package needs to be done every time. We'll see better ways of writing this in the upcoming sessions. It's going to be a little more consolidated, so you'll understand that better. But yeah, that's the basic difference. Now, can you see that there is a difference between these double quotes that are written here? Okay, there are these curvy double quotes and very straight double quotes. So R, when you type it directly in R, it's going to be these straight double quotes. There's going to be no problem at all. But let's say, suppose if I would have given you a Word document and if you would have copy pasted some lines from there into R, then R might get confused. So now you see here, you can see this thing here, right? This different double quotes. So this is what normally is done when you're in R, when you're typing. This is what we did, right? We just did that here. I mean, yeah, it's okay if you have a double quotes as well. But if you have this fancy double quotes, then you can already see that there is this color difference. R is able to recognize a certain thing. So you can see some things in blue, some things in red, right? But here, if I run this, if I'm pressing Control Enter here, you'll see unexpected invalid token here, this thing, right? So within the whole thing, this token right here, that's the invalid thing. So it just stops. The cursor goes here, here, here. When it comes here, it says, oh, this is something I don't understand. So you have to be careful about these double quotes, okay? Likewise, you might observe sometimes when you're writing a Word document, when you put a hyphen, you put space, you put the next word and you press space again, this hyphen becomes long, okay? Again, R will not be able to recognize this longer hyphen. So all it means is whenever you are copy pasting something from a document which is not an R script, then you have to be a little careful, okay, with these symbols. We talked briefly about that there are 3 brackets. So the first one, it's going to be used for your functions, and it's also going to be used in mathematical operations where you want to separate when you have, when you do like a board mass or whatever, you need to separate out different operators. So there you're going to use the curved bracket. The square bracket is used for accessing some index or indices when you're dealing with vectors. This is going to be used very often. So we'll see that more and more. The curved bracket, it's used to define something called chunks. We will deal with this a little later in the lecture, like a little later in the course. But for those of you who might be familiar with words, it's generally used when you have loops and conditional statements. But again, you can forget about that for now. Again, whenever you have functions, more often than not, the functions will have something written inside them. Something you might write. Okay, let me just correct this. It's going to be this quote, right? So it's either going to be without quotes, it can be with quotes. Sometimes it's going to be empty. We'll see those examples. So just like we saw installed dot packages, right? There's nothing to input because you just want to find what all is installed. So you don't need to write anything inside that bracket. And then R is case sensitive. So definitely very important. And then there are minor differences depending on what operating system you're working on. So whether it's called document or script, some minor things, but it should not be a hamper. It should not be hampering any of our classes. We talked about the up and down arrow keys, right? When you want to access any of the previous commands that you've already typed in, so you don't need to copy paste or run it again. This thing from the tab. So, okay. So let's say I write here LIB and I want to type library. So I'll just press enter tab here. So what, maybe it's not visible. Just give me a second. Okay. So if I'm typing this, if I'm pressing the tab here, tab is right above caps lock. If I'm pressing tab here, it's giving me possible options. So you can see here it's giving me these 4 options. I can select which one I want, right? So it helps when you have something very big and you don't remember if there's a dot, if there's a capital letter somewhere. So this can help, right? So this tab can help. Okay, so we have a question here. While going through the videos on the portal, should I be making running notes or there's no need? Will it be beneficial? What should be our approach throughout the course for a successful completion of the course? Okay, so what you can do is, what the best way to go about it is, since this course is command line based, it's definitely heavy on the commands. So if you're able to do it when you are watching these videos, you can have this R session open on your computer and you can make this your own scripts. You can have the script and the console open side by side, and you can make your own notes in the form of that script that we are just doing. So what we are doing here, right? You can just type in here and then you're able to execute it as well at the same time. So if it's working all right, then you've already understood how to go about it, right? Does that make sense? Yeah? No? Okay, so what I mean is, when you're watching the videos, you can have this console and the R script open with you, because it's a command heavy course. So rather than making notes on paper, you're making notes on the computer itself, right? Because typing is better than writing commands. I mean, there's no point in writing down these commands that we've just talked about. Okay, so writing on the computer is definitely better. Does it make sense now? Yep. Okay, good. Okay. So the tab key. So once you have 3 letters typed at least, then you can press the tab and it gives you a better idea. And the R script and the console that we just saw, that's a better way. You have your commands saved. You can add in comments. So comments, if I did not talk about it in detail, but yeah, so you can have this hash symbol. And then after that, if you write anything in that line, R is not going to execute that. And so yeah, these comments are going to be helpful. Console is helpful to keep a note of what you've done. And yeah, so that's basically what I had for this session. There's one more thing before we end. 2 more things before we end. So our console that we just saw right now, this is the basic R. So you just installed this. So you get both your R language and you get this user interface. There's few things which this does not offer. There's few functionalities which are restricted in this. So what I have thought of doing for this course is that there's this app called RStudio. Try installing that. It's from this website. The website is updated. So in the lecture, I don't remember if it's this week or the next week's lecture, but there's an old link for RStudio. So that's obsolete now. There's a new website where it's hosted. Even if you don't get any of these links, you can just type in install RStudio on Google and you'll be redirected to this website. Try installing it. If you're on a Mac computer, you would also need to install something called Xcodez. Again, very simple installation. Let me know if you're not able to do either of this.
Both
So,
R and RStudio are different or same, madam? Or both are required?
okay, so R you've already installed. I'm assuming you have to install R at least. So RStudio offers more functionality. It is upon you if you want to use RStudio. For the next class, what I'm going to do is I'll do the demo on RStudio. So the lectures that you have on NPTEL, throughout the lecture, sir is using R. I have thought of using RStudio. So you will get an idea of both of them, and then you can decide which of the two would you prefer to work on. Otherwise, the thing is same. So there are two different things. You definitely need R because R is the language that's going to be used, that RStudio is going to use. RStudio itself is not useful. So first you install R and then you install RStudio. Again, installing RStudio is optional, but it's just going to give you a good idea. So you might as well learn about it. And then it's up to you if you want to use it or not. It's not essential. But from the next class, I'll start showing you on RStudio. It's not going to be very complicated. It's going to be the same thing. You'll still have a console where you're executing. You'll still have a script where you're typing in. It's just there are going to be a few more things that it shows, which just help sometimes. That's it. Otherwise, it's exactly the same thing. All right. And the details. So all this information, just to reiterate, so all this information, the sessions are being recorded. The link is already shared in the chat box. I'll put it again. Zoom link, you already have it with you. You'll be getting these Zoom links again every week. There's another session happening on every Tuesday, but we'll be covering roughly the same content. So you don't need to attend both sessions. Attendance to these sessions is not going to affect your marks in any form. So it's not essential that you attend any of these sessions, but these are just for your own benefit. Whatever we are discussing today, whatever material, including the slides and the commands, the scripts, everything is going to get uploaded to this Google Drive. Okay, I will explain to you again in a minute. There's one more thing I want to tell you. Yeah, okay. So, I will upload the recording and the PPT in the respective places after the class. So typically every Wednesday you have the assignment submission. For the first week, the assignment submission is not on the coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. So 7th of August is going to be the deadline for submission of assignments of week 1 and 2 both. So submission is basically you type in, like you have to select these options and you press submit. So you can do that right away as well. And on Thursdays, you're going to get the answers to that week's assignment on NPTEL. And starting from the Friday after 7th of August, we can discuss the questions from the previous assignments, the solutions of the previous assignments. Okay, once the assignment solutions are out. And yeah, the next session that on the Friday session would be on, well, every Friday. For this week's assignment, in question number, I think it was question number 8, there's a spelling error, there's a typo in the word lattice. Somewhere it's written, instead of E, there is an S. So you consider that S as an E. So these questions, actually, they are all, I don't have it open. Okay. So there's a Q&A page on the NPTEL page of each course. So use that if you have any questions. Anything other than asking the solution for the assignment, anything else you can post there. And so one of you had just asked how to execute. So let me just open this page again. So I'll close all of this. I don't need to save the workspace image, so I'll press no. So let's say you've installed R on your computer and I have shared this script with you today on Google Drive and you have downloaded it. So what you do is you say you open it with R. So it's going to open these two things. It's going to open the script and it's going to open the console. I have my cursor on the script and I'm going to press Control Enter or Command Enter. Either of the things work. So when I press that, my cursor is here, but the thing got copy pasted and run here. I can also directly type in here and then press enter, and that's also going to do the same thing. All right. So that's what execution is Yep. Okay. All right. So that's about it for today's session. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you all next Friday, 2nd of August at the same time. So the link stays the same for the Friday sessions. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.